Hello, it's great to have you with us this morning.
Good morning.
And the newspapers, Alice, that's a nice story.
Well, it's good news, really, I suppose. Anybody can be a lord if you're into ermine robes and you want
Which I am.
a personal coat of arms.
Which I do.
And you want a title lord.
Which I do. Lord Woodford's got a ring to it.
Well, you're going to have difficulties. You've got to fill in an application form and you need two referees.
Oh, that's me out of the question. It'd be great though if we were all lord and ladies, it'd be an equal society.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure where it gets you in society. Does it get you greater standing? I don't know.
We'd all be the same.
There's a hole in my dome, dear Liza. As if we're not sick of the dome already, there is now a hole in it.
In fact, it says there's a worryingly large gash which is developed on the outer surface of the dome, which is now letting daylight in. My goodness, I hope there's an NHBC cover on that.
It's the polytetrafluoroethylene.
It is indeed. Anyway, coming up this morning. Could reading Harry Potter and playing around with internet spells turn teenagers on to witchcraft? Is it harmless hocus pocus, or are they dicing with danger?
What happens when a Catholic priest and a Jewish rabbi fall for the same woman? Hollywood star Edward Norton talks about the love triangle in his new romantic comedy.
Alan Bessick is here with his take on the week's news, and he's out pestering the public, as he's known to do, to help sort out the big dilemma of the week.
And something strange is happening in the Arizona desert. John Money is stateside with a tale of sinister lights in the night sky.
Oh, I don't know.
Why would it hover and then flash and go away?
Because it's a helicopter.
No.
Now, dressing up in pointy hats at Halloween might be the nearest most of us get to witchcraft. But just pop your head around a typical teenager's bedroom door and you might be shocked to find spells being cast and magic potions being brewed. Programmes like Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and even poor old Harry Potter have made witchcraft and sorcery more acceptable.
Meanwhile, young people are logging onto the internet where spell sites abound. Is it just an innocent craze or is it something more worrying? In a moment, we'll be discussing this in the studio with a white witch, a concerned GP and an agony aunt. But first, we've been following a group of teenagers, starting with three 15-year-olds, Heather, Christina and Lisa.
I found a spell. It's to increase our psychic powers. Do you want to do this? Yeah, I'll do it. Right, okay. This is what we have to do. At dusk, 3 days after a full moon, gather all the things you need for the spell and sit cross-legged in your room. Okay. Close your eyes. Then with your right hand, pick up the stone and hold it in the centre of your forehead. Okay. An area known as the third eye. At the same time, imagine your psychic powers increasing. Okay, open your eyes and place a stone in the bowl, covering it with the spring water. Okay. Shall I cover it? You do. Yeah, just cover it. Wow. Okay. Take the pen and on your photograph, draw an eye in the centre of the forehead. And place the photo picture side up into the bowl of a crystal energised water and imagine it cleansing your third eye. Okay, we have to say this.
All of us?
Yeah. Okay, ready? Water, water, add to my power, give to me your magic this hour. Increase my vision, increase it tonight, help me use my second sight. Okay.
Does that mean I'm psychic?
Yeah, put it in.
Okay. Maybe.
Hail to the guardians of the watchtowers of the east. Powers of air, I invoke thee to enter this circle here.
O horned god, I became involved in witchcraft at the age of 14, and I discovered paganism from a local occult shop. I read about witchcraft and I knew that that was the pagan religion that most attracted me. Witchcraft sees the natural world as alive and full of energies that we can tap into and use for magic. I charge this sacred space with the element of air.
I think a lot of teenagers are attracted to witchcraft these days because of the freedom you get with it. You have no book setting down exactly what you have to do. There's no one all-powerful book like the Bible or the Quran. I charge this candle with the powers of fire. Let them help me in my ventures. I had a transitional period between being an Anglican and being a witch where I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to be doing.
Circle is sealed.
I feel attracted to witchcraft because it just feels right, like you get a feeling from it. When you're with people that practice, you can feel the energy, and some people who are sceptical might say it's psychological, but you can really feel it, like coursing through your body.
Moon, moon, mother moon, mother, mother, moon, moon.
I don't see there's much of a danger with messing about with witchcraft, because if you have no actual intent, if you don't know what you're doing, and if you don't put the will to what you're doing, basically probably nothing will happen. Occasionally people might get a slight scare caused by hysteria or something like that, but basically what's going to happen is nothing. If you don't know what you're doing, as is the key thing with most things in life, if you don't know what you're doing, you get it wrong.
Well, is teenage witchcraft harmless hocus pocus or dabbling with dangerous evil forces? We're joined in the studio today by White Witch Titania Hardy, GP Nicholas Herodutu, and also Susie Heyman, an agony aunt with onesaturday.co. Welcome to you all. Nicholas, let me begin with you. You saw a film there of two groups of teenagers, perhaps at different levels with regards to their exploration with witchcraft. Surely that's just a bit of fun, isn't it? It's not harmful.
Well, it was quite, if I may say, I actually, in fact, came from a spiritualist background. As that young chap was saying, he got into sort of Wicca at the age of 14. I myself got into spiritualism at the age of 14. To be brief, I was sucked into it because I was searching for meaning to life. I wanted truth. I wanted something supernatural. I didn't know who God was, so unfortunately I got wrapped into spiritualism, going to psychic meetings. That opened the door to all sorts of different philosophical belief systems, going to fortune tellers, open up to sort of supernatural phenomena. And quite clearly there is a supernatural phenomenon involved with Wicca or witchcraft. Yeah. I basically became a Christian at the age of about 25 after many years of earnest searching, and it really was through reading about Jesus in the Bible that set me free, because I discovered this Jesus had more power than any other supernatural force possible. And as a consequence of that, I can honestly say that if I hadn't become a Christian, I don't think I would be alive today. One of the chaps touched on a very important point, the idea of wanting to be free. I think it was the lady. Now, that's really a lie, because when people say we should be allowed to think what we want and do what we want, regardless, that makes you free. It doesn't. You and I can't choose to go on the opposite side of the road because we feel like being free. If we do so, there are consequences. Similarly, the idea of doing what you want, regardless of any consequences, is just not true.
That's not what she said. Can I jump in? I'm sorry.
Please do.
I have
Please
to,
do.
because that is not what she said, Nicholas. And, you know, I appreciate, we have different views about this, obviously, but she didn't say that. She said that she liked the lack of formal restraint about the actual practices itself.
And she was quite specific about that. Because you call yourself a white witch.
That's
Do you identify with any of the things that those teenagers were doing?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that the older group, obviously, who have thought it out, they've approached it from an intellectual background, and it is a religion. I mean, let's be very clear. It's a competitive religion to yours, Nicholas. So inevitably, no, let me finish first. It is a competitive religion. So obviously, you know, we're looking at different sides of a piece here. But I think part of what they're attracted to is that they are very spiritual people. They have a very strong inclination. They're not happy with the formal observations of the church. You must allow them that they may not be happy with that. Perhaps it's for a score of reasons. Perhaps they feel that the church is anti-feminine in many respects, and I think they've got a good case for that. Perhaps they feel that it's not in touch with present society. I think they articulated that beautifully, and that their circles were very well practiced. They were looking at not drawing down. And let us not think that witchcraft automatically means dark arts. That's your argument, not ours.
But we do, generally, we do, don't we? The moment we hear the word witch, you know, we immediately think of... Yeah, we do.
And the argument here, I mean, really the question is, you know, does Harry Potter, does watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, does watching sort of Bewitched or Sabrina the Teenage Witch lead people into doing terrible things and being terrible people? And I would say... nonsense.
It's risible.
Why? Because you don't believe it works.
Precisely. I mean, I suppose I'm as it were, in the middle of these two. And
but is it dangerous for children to
I think the point is... Hang on, Nicholas. I think the important point is that people sometimes are in a bad place in their life. And as Nicholas says, they're looking for reason, they're looking for an explanation, they're looking for sometimes excuses. And actually you can take any belief system and any discipline and make it your excuse or your answer. And quite frankly, you know, some people drawn into Christianity do terrible things in the name of Christianity.
Yes,
so I don't think that's the
Waco
problem. And I suppose my feeling here is that I don't think, you know, the spells don't work.
Well, Nicholas
and so
must believe
therefore
it
they're not
works.
opening a channel to something that's going to destroy them. They're just having a bit of a game. And actually, I'll tell you something which I feel is very important. One of the things that I saw there with both those groups was young people working together and having a bit of fun. Now, if you're talking about a power, that's the most forceful power. If you read the Harry Potters, if you watch Buffy, they're all about friendship and loyalty and good things.
No, in the first lot, no.
The
But in the
second looked a
second
little
lot, we
bit more
start...
sinister.
Yes,
but
I
it did
think
because they were
look
dressed in
slightly.
black, it was dark, it was night time.
It was more
We don't
ritualistic.
understand it. We don't understand what... Tell us what they were doing. What were they hoping to achieve from that?
It's a ritual. It's drawing down. We believe that there are powers in nature which are very close to the rhythms of the earth and that we are part of that. So, I mean, I would agree with Susie largely that a lot of it is open to debate about what really is involved
but
here.
without it's like anything, without a lack of knowledge, you know, the lack of knowledge, is it feasible that we can draw down evil forces whilst playing around with something like that? Do you believe?
I don't believe it. I think you have to be very careful to make your spell and your intentions, your motives very, very clear. But to say you can draw down dark things is like saying that as soon as you pray, you could get the devil on the other side. Nicholas.
Can I ask you a question? Would you allow me to ask you one question?
Certainly, I'd be delighted.
There's no difference common to this misconception in society that there's a difference between a black witch and a white witch. We have to ask the question, where does the source come from? Now, quite clear, we always assume good comes from God. By definition, you have to have a framework.
Well, I would disagree.
Similarly, if there is a
bit of a jump,
supernatural
okay.
force, then quite clearly it's got to come from something in its origin, i.e. evil. Now, I believe there are three
Evil is
things.
your
Would you let me
brand,
finish?
not
I believe there are
mine.
3 consequences to opening yourself to the occult. When you open yourself, there are moral, spiritual and mental or psychological consequences to dabbling with the occult. I would warn people earnestly to stay well clear from it because...
Do you think when it appears in teenage girly magazines, Ms., which I think is probably aimed at sort of 10, probably up to 16, they have a spooky page, weird stuff, and things you can't explain from on this earth.
Sure, it's
The
supernatural.
unexplained. Does that worry you, or do you think this is harmless fun? Because that's what we're concerned
It's
about.
pandemic of a nation that has really departed from its Christian roots. And as a consequence, there's a vacuum and people are seeking alternative supernatural
But Nicholas, is the
phenomena.
fear for you that there's a movement away from Christianity and towards other things such as this? Is that the fear that
I
you
say
have?
it's a movement away from God, and people have lost any sense of right and wrong.
Can't
She
you do both?
acknowledged there's a
No.
religion. It's a religion. Every
That's not
religion
fair.
has to
Tanya,
have a moral framework.
Let me.
I
What
have to
Nicholas
jump
is
in.
suggesting is that what you're doing is evil, basically. That's what that comes.
You've just assumed that you are the ones who have a sole propriety here on what is good and morally right. Wrong.
Alice, how do you determine what's right and wrong?
How
What's
do
your
you?
moral
Why
framework?
is your brand of prayer not occult, but mine is? You are assuming an argument that has been here for centuries
Can I
to put us down.
What I'd like to do, can I just bring in just a very quick quote? And this is from Sharuk Hussain, a folklorist and editor of the Virago Book of Witches, and she says her own research among teenage witches explores links between witchcraft and adolescent sexuality. Being a witch is about embracing your dark side, which women are not supposed to accept, and it lets you celebrate the part that's a slut or that has foul language. What would you say to that?
I think that's an answer that's Susie. I would can we clarify? She means dark side in terms of repressed side, not evil side.
Do you
that's
think,
very
Susie,
important.
young girls are going to go off and start seeing the dark side or exercising the dark side of their
Absolutely not.
character?
What I would like, actually, was with them perhaps to get in touch with the side that a particular discipline, Christianity, has told them is bad and evil, and I would think actually it's just normal. You're talking about roots, may I point out. Actually, this country's roots, in fact, are in witchcraft, because Christianity is only 2,000 years old, and it didn't come from this country. So if you're going back to what our real roots are, we actually should all be pagans. But I think that's not actually the point. I think the important point is that I think people are genuinely good, and what teenagers are always looking for is an answer. They're looking to reinvent themselves, as it were, to understand themselves. And
What
this
if they
is
don't
just
get
part
that
of the
answer?
game.
What if the spells don't
Well, they
work?
won't, and they probably won't find it in Christianity. What they're looking for, in fact, is just a way of asking themselves, who am I, and what do I want to
It's
do in life?
enlightening.
And it's just a bit of
But
fun.
if the spells
I
don't
think
work,
it's
do they
just a
feel
bit
a
of fun.
failure, and does that
Not
cause
at
them a
all,
problem?
not at all. The same, I mean, you know, if you want to talk about spells, I mean, I'll tell you one of the things that agony aunts all know about one spell, because we see the damn things all the time, which is chain letters. Now, chain letters have been around. I mean, the other thing is, you know, thinking that this is something new. Christianity, the sort of witchcraft and stuff was around when I was a teenager, around when you were a teenager.
Did you
It's been there
dabble?
for ages. Of course I did. We all
Did you?
Everybody did, didn't we?
Dabble's a
But the point
dangerous
is,
word,
now, hang
though,
on.
isn't it?
The thing
Dabble's
about
a
the chain
bit
letters,
dabble
the thing about chain letters is all teenagers send chain letters, and they all get quite tied up about it, and they send them off, and they send them to agony aunts, and if chain letters actually had any force at all, I and every agony aunt in the country would be dead, dead, dead.
We've
But
got
the
a
point
new
is we're
tool
not.
now, haven't we?
And
We've
young
got the
people learn
internet, which
this.
we've
They learn
found
this,
is
that it doesn't work.
the internet is opening us up to all sorts of things. So teenagers who are using the internet more than anybody else, is that dangerous? Are you worried, Nicholas?
About the internet?
About teenagers accessing witchcraft through the internet. There's spells on the internet.
Totally uncontrolled.
They don't know who they're talking to.
It's a doorway to danger. Once you open this door of the occult, and that's the umbrella we're going to use, it means hidden, mystical. You cannot close that door. I believe there's only one way
you've stopped praying,
a person
Nicholas. You don't talk to
can
God
be
anymore.
released
But
from
you
that
were.
supernatural power.
But you
It's
were.
a supernatural power. Yes, it was
So
only
you're
through the power
different.
of Jesus that changed my life. Because he is the
Because-
only true
because,
supernatural
forgive me,
being.
Nicholas, but you're saying Jesus is the only brand we can accept, and
No,
I argue
what I'm
with
saying is that people are looking for spiritual meaning to life. They're
Yes.
looking for something
But yours isn't the only
supernatural
path
beyond
to
the
that.
flesh.
Do we draw a
you
line
do
through
both?
Asia?
I think it's a bit
you
contradictory.
combine?
It's like saying, you know, you can be married to one woman, but then be also married to another person. You can only be married to one person, and a person who chooses to follow God through Jesus Christ can only belong to him.
By the
It's
party
one
line
marriage, if you
wholesale,
like, in
ask no
spiritual
questions
sense.
is what you're saying.
Are there not some similarities? I mean, for example, you're talking...
Hugely.
There are, aren't there, Shirley? I mean, you're
course there
talking
are.
about, you know, the wonderful forces
Absolutely.
of the world that you're drawing on.
And let us remember, please, that Catholicism had no problem. They just adopted the same smells, the bells, the colours, that there was less trouble about that ritualistic, lovely, magical element. And just one word to answer Susie, who I have lots of respect for about this, but Suze, you would agree too, I think, that a lot of what does work, if anything does work in spells, is the psychological aspect. By preparing yourself and focusing yourself with those same tools that Catholicism
Just as
used.
praying does. And the point is,
Yes,
I think I'm making
exactly.
is, I think the point is it's not the discipline that's the problem.
Right.
It's what people bring it to. And if people are troubled, they would be troubled whatever.
And let's remind ourselves what we're concerned with, what the discussion is concerned with is teenage witchcraft and the development
Absolutely.
that's happening around that.
And we shall come back to it.
Indeed, we
But,
shall.
Are you frightened by what you've just heard? Is the doctor right? Witchcraft is dangerous. Are Titania's spells harmless fun?
Oh, I hope not.
No. We want to put your points to our guests. The number to call is 0990 12 22 88, or you can email us at heaven.
He's a spooky guy,
He hasn't
John
been
Milne.
seen since, has he?
He's a spooky
He's
guy.
gone into the ether.
If ever there was evidence that a lot of Americans are barking...
No, you can't say that.
I've just said
Unless
it.
you're going to answer the emails afterwards.
No, I'm
you
not.
can't
I'll
say
be
Americans
gone.
are barking.
Right, all this morning we've been talking about the controversial issue of teenage witchcraft, and these days with the internet, access to spells and charms are simply a click away. But witches have always been part of popular culture. Television has and still does make full use of them. Remember this?
Bewitched.
You have 8 apples. Now take away 2 apples. How many apples are left?
Take away 2 apples. That's easy, Mommy. That makes 6.
Well, we can dabble, can't we? But if we can learn to twitch our noses. Are they all the same? Can we lump them all in as witchcraft? Well, here to take your calls are White Witch Titania Hardy, GP Nicholas Herodotou, and Agony Aunt Susie Heyman. Welcome back. Titania, would you say that they are all dabbling in witchcraft? I mean, bewitched. That's not
of
witchcraft,
course.
is it?
I think what's lovely about Bewitched was that it was an attempt for the first time after centuries of oppression to actually make a witch a figure of fun, love, lightheartedness and whiteness. She never did anything bad to anybody, and that reverses a trend that is so old. I mean, it's almost impossible to find another one, actually. I think Glinda the Good Witch in Wizard of Oz might be one. Every other witch in every other fairy tale is always bad, so I was delighted with Bewitched.
Well, we've had a phenomenal response to this particular topic. Emails and phone calls are just waddling in the thousands, as they say. Right, Mark Dutton from Guernsey. He says it's reassuring to hear that witchcraft is being recognised as its own religion. Right. And Catherine Blackburn from Lancashire says witchcraft is a doorway to danger. Thank you very much for this one, Catherine. She says she was only fooling about and have now accessed a dark side which she can't switch off.
Well, that sounds worrying. This 16-year-old says that she, I'm not sure, practices it. Nothing much happens when you do it. It's just a bit of fun. So, I mean, Nicholas, that's really, it's a bit of fun. That's what we're saying. And this one is aimed at you, I think. Does the doctor regard any other religion as occult or dangerous? What about other ancient religions, such as Hinduism, Muslim? I think they were accusing you of being blinkered. And somebody rather lovely says, I don't think of myself as a practising white witch, but I have all of Titania's books, and I find her writings to be enlightening.
Oh, there you go, right.
Got your lovely coffee table books.
Yeah, we've got a caller on line 1. We've got Susan. Good morning, Susan.
Hi.
Thank you very much for calling in. And you have a point that you'd like to make, please?
Yeah, I have 3 books by Titania. I've been doing witchcraft ever since I was 14, and I love it. It helps me.
How old are you now?
When I do mine.
How old are you now, Susan?
I'm 18.
You're 18.
Susan, can I just say, if you've read the books too, you know that the point about the possibilities, when you decide to do any spell making, you have to think very clearly about what you're doing, and you're doing that with your spells.
It's not Titania you have to convert, though. Dr. Dodo and Susie, tell them what kind of things you've been doing.
I've been doing all different types of spells, love spells, healing spells, and it's just totally harmless. There's no evil side to it.
Give us an example, Susan, of one of the spells that you've done that has worked and that you've benefited from.
Well, I wanted to do a spell to bring love closer to home, because I was lonely for like 2 years. And it actually worked. In those 2 years, it actually worked. It brought someone closer to me. And I actually found him, and I've been with him for like nearly 7-8 months now.
Good.
And it's really good. It's helped me a lot, but there's no evil side to it.
Nicholas, it's good, it's healthy.
Can I ask you, what is it you're actually doing? Why are you doing it? What's the purpose of you doing witchcraft?
Well, it's just something that I enjoy doing. I mean, I've seen films and everything else, and it interested me to take it that step further. And I went on the internet and spoke to people, and they told me that there is nothing wrong with it anyway. And I've been going to shops to get the books and the things I need to do my spells.
It's a hobby for
All I can say to you, ma'am, is that actually it's extremely dangerous. I mean, you're free to choose what you want to believe in, and I would never endeavour to try and take someone's own convictions. I believe in freedom and liberty and the right to choose for yourself.
As long as we choose
your
path.
If I can add a warning, that as an ex-spiritualist and a person who is heavily involved in the occult, there are consequences, morally, spiritually and mentally.
But you came through it, you're fine, you're an enlightened person.
Well,
you've seen
I
how
can say
these
this,
are.
I came through it. I think one of those questions you mentioned, that the girls couldn't stop it, I would say there's only one person who is the true supernatural being, and that's Jesus Christ. He has only the power to rescue you.
That's your belief, isn't it?
Yes, with a conviction that I was set free from its power. I wanted real supernatural experiences.
Let's take you away from your Christian role now, and let's put you back into the GP's chair behind that desk. Do you have evidence? Have you had any youngster come through the door, made an appointment with you because they have had a problem related to the fact that they dabbled in witchcraft?
It's difficult to have any statistical evidence.
I'm not
so
asking
I
for
can't
that.
talk from
I'm not asking for
statistical
statistics.
Certainly I've met patients who have had involvement with the occult and had serious problems as a consequence of it.
Psychological problems?
Psychologically and mentally.
No, I would say it's the other way around. I think cause and effect is being confused here. I think that there are people who have problems who sometimes, I mean, they go to all sorts of places, and they may go to somewhere the occult. They have, they have deep emotional problems, and then they blame the occult or whatever as being the thing. I mean, it's a bit like the child who, grabs the hold of the cat's tail and says, I'm not pulling the tail of the cat, Mummy. I'm just holding on the cat's pulling.
Let's take another call.
That's a giving way of responsibility.
I'm surprised by the number of people who've emailed us and rung us who are trying it. I'm absolutely amazed. David Butler, I think, is on the line. Hello, David.
Hello.
Morning, David.
You've dabbled, I think it's fair to say, and you think it's dangerous. Is that right?
Very much so. Actually, more than dabbled. I got very, very involved for quite a long period while I was in Africa.
As a young person or as an adult?
As an adult.
And why would you be concerned about children? All these people speaking and saying, well, I've tried it and actually didn't like it, it wasn't for me, and I've come through it, and, why is that not a problem to have experienced and moved on?
Well, it might appear that they're suffering no ill effects, but they don't know what is going on in their life.
Well, what happened to you?
Sorry?
What happened to you, David?
Well, I got into a terrible state, and I got to such a stage where I needed deliverance in a major way. I was so deeply into this that what it done to my life was unbelievable. Right, I'm a Christian now, and it's only as a Christian that I had deliverance. So I know Titania most probably says, might poo-hoo it. I wonder if she really realizes exactly to what extent she's getting involved with the spirit world. There are evil spirits around. And if you are under their influence, heaven help you.
David, I'm glad that you raised that point. I would agree that there are spirits that we're dealing with. My books urge again and again that you protect yourself with a white circle, that your thoughts are always positive and good, and that you ask yourself very carefully what your motives are in doing any spell making. It's clear to me that it's part of a religion. I appreciate what you say, but I think we're really coming back to a fundamental issue. This is my brand of religious outlook as distinct from yours. And forgive me, but at the end, it's largely about that binary.
But couldn't you argue that the fact that you've got to protect yourself with this circle, that there's evil spirits out there that might sneak in?
Yeah. No.
Isn't that scary?
The white circle is an attempt to pull all positive thinking, actually, Susie would probably say here, out of the person themselves. I would argue, actually, that spells and magic work, 90% psychology, I'm with Susie in that, but there's 10% of the unicorn factor to me, which is this wonderful, mysterious thing. My argument with Nicholas, and it would be with David too, is that you feel that your only path to that is your path, that you have a monopoly on religious truth. I dispute that.
See, they both believe the same thing, which is that there's evil out there, and this is the only thing that's going to protect me. And I think my response would be, don't be so dogmatic, and as it were, trust human beings.
Well, would you be happy with your children doing it?
Absolutely.
You'd be happy with your children having fun?
What I would not be happy with is if my children were unhappy and troubled and didn't know where to go.
What is evident out of this? What is evident out of this is that this is a subject that we've really hit hard, haven't we?
Yes,
People
indeed.
really
it's an important point, and I think especially for women at the moment.
Absolutely. Okay, well, all of you, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for your call. Next Sunday,